You think you know where you stand with her? Everything seems perfect. She's affectionate, tells you how lucky she is to have you, and acts like you're the only man in her world. Then, without warning, something shifts. No big fight, no. Betrayal? No obvious reason. Just a quiet, unsettling change in the way she looks at you. One day, she's fully present. The next, she feels distant, like a stranger wearing her face. This is the emotional flip, the moment when a woman's feelings shift without logic or warning. It's not about you failing or doing something wrong. It's about how female emotions operate on a different wavelength than male rationality. Men attach through consistency. Once we care, we stay locked in. Women attach through feeling, and feelings change like the weather. What thrilled her yesterday might bore her today. The security that comforted her last month might now feel stifling. The signs are subtle at first. She holds eye contact a second less than usual. Her texts lose their warmth, just a degree colder. She's suddenly busy when you suggest plans, but her social media shows her out with friends. Most men dismiss these shifts, chalking them up to stress or a passing mood. But the man who's been here before recognizes the pattern. This is how detachment begins. The hardest truth? Once that switch starts flipping, it rarely resets. Women don't lose interest slowly like men do. Their emotional disengagement is sudden, like a trapdoor opening beneath your feet. It's not always about another man or some unforgivable mistake. Often, it's just that the emotional charge she once felt with you has faded, and now she's chasing that high elsewhere, even if she doesn't consciously admit it yet. This is why men who tie their self-worth to a woman's affection set themselves up for devastation. You can't freeze her emotions in place. What she feels today isn't a promise about tomorrow. The strongest men understand this. They don't panic when she pulls away. They don't beg or bargain. They observe, adjust, and if necessary, walk away before she ever gets the chance to. Because once you understand the flip, you stop fearing it. You realize the only thing you truly control is how you respond. The female emotional landscape operates on a different set of rules than the male. Mind can easily comprehend. Where men tend to build attachment through shared experiences and steady investment over time, women's connections are more fluid, rising and falling on invisible tides of feeling. This fundamental difference explains why a woman can seem completely devoted one moment and emotionally withdrawn the next, often leaving men confused and scrambling for explanations. At the core of this phenomenon lies a crucial distinction in how attraction functions. For women, emotional engagement isn't static. It's a living thing that requires constant renewal. The very stability that men often pride themselves on providing can paradoxically become the reason for her disengagement. When a relationship becomes too predictable, when the emotional spikes and valleys flatten into monotony, that's when the subconscious search for stimulation begins. This isn't necessarily a conscious choice, but rather an instinctive pull toward what feels alive and compelling in the moment. Several key triggers can prompt this shift. Boredom acts as the silent killer of many relationships, not the dramatic, acknowledged kind, but the subtle erosion of excitement that happens when routines replace spontaneity. Comparison plays another devastating role, whether she's measuring you against past relationships, potential future partners, or even idealized fantasies. The modern world offers endless opportunities for these comparisons, from social media to everyday interactions. Perhaps most dangerously, the mere curiosity of what if can take root, the wondering about whether different might mean better, regardless of how good things currently are. The cruel irony is that these shifts often happen at the peak of male investment. Just when a man feels most secure and committed, that's frequently when the emotional flip occurs. This creates devastating whiplash. He's operating on the assumption that increased dedication strengthens the bond. While she may be experiencing, it is loss of the very tension that made the relationship exciting initially. The man who doesn't understand this dynamic will keep doubling down on the wrong approach, mistaking more commitment for the solution when it might actually be accelerating the problem. When a woman begins to emotionally withdraw, most men instinctively react with panic. They chase harder, plead their case, and desperately try to fix whatever they assume went wrong. This approach fails every time because it operates on the false premise that her distance is a problem, to be solved through more effort. In reality, her withdrawal is an emotional state, not a logical conclusion. And trying to reason your way back into her good graces only reinforces the very dynamic that pushed her away. The moment you start chasing, you've already lost. You're now operating within her frame, playing by her rules, and confirming that she holds all the power in the relationship. The counterintuitive truth is that silence becomes your most powerful weapon when she flips. Not the petulant silence of punishment, but the calm, unshakable quiet of a man who refuses to be drawn into emotional chaos. When you withdraw your attention completely, no angry outbursts, no pleading texts, no passive-aggressive social media posts, you create a vacuum where her assumptions about your behavior can no longer hold. She expects you to react. When you don't, it forces her to sit with the consequences of her withdrawal for the first time. This absence works on multiple levels. It removes the validation she was unconsciously seeking through your pursuit. It preserves your dignity by refusing to engage in a losing battle. And most importantly, it makes her experience genuine loss, rather than just threatening you with it. Women's emotions operate on contrast. They only truly value what they fear losing. Your silence creates that contrast in the starkest possible terms. Where there was once your steady attention, now there's nothing. Where she could previously count on your predictable responses, now there's only unsettling quiet. This contrast forces her emotional system to recalibrate. Without your reactions to measure herself against, she's left alone with her own thoughts, and that's when the questions start. Did I make a mistake? Does he not care like I thought? What if he's moving on? These aren't intellectual questions. They're emotional tremors that shake her certainty about the decision to withdraw. The man who maintains his silence during this critical period gains tremendous leverage, while the one who breaks first surrenders it completely. The journey a woman goes through after flipping and being met with your silence follows a predictable emotional arc. Though most men never stick around long enough to see it play out, initially she experienced relief, a weight lifted from making what feels like an empowered choice. This stage is dangerous for men to witness because she may appear happier or carefree, even posting more on social media as if liberated. But this is surface level. It's fueled by the novelty of change rather than genuine contentment. As days turn into weeks without contact, curiosity begins creeping in. She starts checking her phone more often, analyzing your last interactions, wondering why you haven't cracked. This is when her imagination starts working against her. She scrutinizes past conversations for hints you were less invested than she thought, or invents scenarios where you've moved on, the absence of your usual patterns. Creates mental space she can't help but fill with questions. By the third stage, projection kicks in hard. Unable to reconcile your uncharacteristic silence with her self-image, she'll reframe you as the villain. You're cold, you never really cared. This proves she made the right choice. These aren't genuine indictments, but psychological defense. Mechanisms protecting her from confronting that maybe she miscalculated. Watch closely during this phase, and you'll notice subtle bids for attention. A random like on an old post. Bumping into you accidentally. Anything to provoke the reaction that would reassure her she still matters. The rationalization phase follows, where she constructs plausible reasons to reconnect without losing face. She might dig up some forgotten item at your place, or recall an inside joke out of the blue. These seem like innocent overtures, but carry hidden emotional weight. They're trial balloons testing whether the door is still open. Most men misinterpret these as genuine interest and come rushing back, which resets the entire dynamic to square one. True surrender only comes after she's cycled through all these stages. It's not just missing you, it's needing to resolve the cognitive dissonance your silence created. When she reaches out earnestly, it's not because you chased, but because you forced her to confront what life without you actually feels like. The man who understands this process doesn't celebrate prematurely. He knows. The real test is maintaining frame when she returns. The moment she comes back is when most men make their fatal mistake. Flooded with relief and validation, they drop their guard completely, showering her with affection, making promises to change, or worse, pretending nothing ever happened. This emotional overexposure kills any attraction rebuilt during your absence. The correct approach is counterintuitive. You must remain more emotionally reserved than she is. Even as she's trying to reconnect, true power lies in measured reciprocity. Match her energy, but never exceed it. If she sends a casual text, reply with equal casualness after a reasonable delay. When she suggests meeting up, appear agreeable, but not eager. This creates an emotional tension where she's forced to invest more to regain your full attention. The woman who left you questioning her feelings should now find herself working to prove her sincerity. Rebuilding after a flip requires subtle recalibration of the relationships. Power dynamics. Introduce new boundaries where old patterns of complacency existed. Be slightly less available than before, not as punishment, but as natural consequence. The version of you she returns to can't be identical to the one she left. Otherwise, nothing has fundamentally changed. Your interactions should carry faint traces of that same indifferent energy that brought her back in the first place. Most importantly, resist the urge to discuss what happened or seek closure about her withdrawal. Those conversations inevitably become emotional quicksand where you lose all leverage. Instead, let her be the one to broach the subject if she must, and when she does. Respond with calm ambiguity rather than vulnerable honesty. The less you say about the ordeal, the more it stays in her mind as your unshakable strength rather than her moment of power. This isn't about manipulation. It's about establishing that your emotional presence must be earned moving forward. Man who masters this transition doesn't get the same woman back. He gets a version who now understands his value at a visceral level. She may test again in the future, but never with the same casual disregard, because she's experienced what happens when you choose yourself without hesitation. Now that silent lesson lingers long after reconciliation.